Monday, March 24th edition of the Carolina Weather Video. Meteorologist Matthew East here with you. Pretty chilly morning out there. Let's start off with a look up in Banner Elk this morning. The temperature there in Banner Elk sitting at 17 degrees, the wind chill of 9. Some pretty cold air across the region for late March. Let's look at some of those mountain temperatures, 20s and 30s, and some teens involved as you get into northwestern North Carolina. Certainly pretty cold out there around the region. Now, yesterday our highs, 53 in Greensboro, Raleigh at 57, 60 in Charlotte, 70 in Columbia. And it was a much cooler day than what we had back on Saturday. We also had some rain roll through as yesterday unfolded. And again, it's a chilly Monday morning. A lot of folks in the 30s once you get outside of the mountains. Yeah, pretty cold. Need the jackets when you head out the door this morning. It will be a pretty quiet weather day today, though. High pressure building very quickly down through our region. That'll mean a lot of sunshine today, but the next storm system just beginning to organize down in the Gulf of Mexico. More on that in just a second. As far as today is concerned, pretty quiet. There's a look at Futurecast as we go through the day. Just a lot of sunshine. With chilly temperatures, though, highs running a good bit below average for this time of year. In fact, some spots may be 15 degrees below average for this portion of the month of March. Now, as we get on into tonight, we'll see clouds very quickly building in as that area of low pressure begins to take shape down to the Gulf of Mexico and Florida, and then that will slide offshore. Now, this is not going to take an overly favorable track to give heavy precipitation inland to the Carolinas, but it will bring some precipitation inland of the Carolinas, and it could very well be in spots, especially, say, I-85 at points north and west, a little period of some light snow tomorrow morning, and then some lingering areas of light rain at times thereafter as that low pressure really bombs out and pulls away. Here's the NAM computer model and its representation of some snow totals with this system. Again, this is not going to be a big deal in terms of snow out east of the mountains. We're talking maybe a dusting of snow on some elevated surfaces, especially around the Triad region up to the Virginia border. But again, not a big deal at all. Mountains a little bit more, especially as you get the northwest flow snow kicking in as that low pressure pulls away. And I tell you what, this thing is indeed going to bomb out. Check out the GFS model. This is the sea level pressure chart, and the color contours there, that's the wind speeds, the surface wind speeds. And look at this thing. Just becomes a monster low pressure there that moves through the Canadian Maritimes. And I mean, you're looking at widespread winds over 50 miles per hour. And of course, there'll be some spots that see much higher winds than that out over the water. And then the snow will really crank in some spots right along the coast. This is the European model, putting out a very significant snow event from eastern Long Island up through eastern Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, and points north and east from there. So very significant northeast winter storm, especially for areas right along the coast. Now, as that system departs, we see a pretty good plunge of cold air behind it. Look at our temperatures by Wednesday morning. It's cold stuff for this time of year. Really cold start to Wednesday, and Wednesday will be a cold day, but temperatures will then modify as we get toward Thursday and Friday. All right, here's a look at the European 500 millibar chart. This is this afternoon, and you're looking at a piece of energy diving down here through the plain states. That is what will really kick our next storm system into gear by 42 hours. There it is, diving into the eastern part of the country. Now, this, as we were discussing the possibilities with this system last week, I mentioned that you really needed this to dig further off to the west if you wanted a big low pressure that caused a lot of precip in the western and the central Carolinas. That is not going to occur. It will become a monster low, but that'll be as it heads further off to the north and east. Now, let me show you what it looks like first of all with in terms of our portion of the system on the Canadian model. Whoop. All right, there we go. Back to get that back in the proper sizing there. There's the Canadian model, and low pressure offshore tomorrow morning and the afternoon, and generally some light precip. Here's the color contours for the Canadian model, and this is valid, let's see, around daybreak tomorrow morning. And then a little bit later in the day, that's mid-morning. And you can see, again, anywhere, as I mentioned, roughly, say, I-85 corridor points north and west. And even, there's some variability there. That's not a hard and fast line. But in parts of western and central North Carolina, could be a little period of some light snow tomorrow, but not enough to really matter. And it'll kick over to just some areas of lingering light rain later in the day. European model representation. This is the precip during the early morning hours tomorrow. And then as you transition later in the day, you can see that light precipitation moving through. But watch this thing bomb out. Look at that. That becomes a monster low there off the coast of the northeastern United States by late Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. This thing rapidly deepens. That'll be a bombing area of low pressure. Later in the week, here's a peek at the European model showing our next opportunity for rain around Friday. Looks like a pretty decent rain chance for us on Friday. And overall, we'll be warming things up by then. Let me show you the GFS model. There it is with our low pressure. This is the 0Z run. This is around daybreak tomorrow. And 12 hours, or I should say 6 hours later, there goes the low up the coast. Now, I didn't really spend a lot of time on this, but I do need to mention it'll get really cold behind this storm system, at least for a brief period of time. Our low temperatures well down into the 20s across the Piedmont Wednesday morning, highs in the 40s Wednesday, and then we see a steady warming trend as we get toward late week. Nothing overly warm, but we'll be back in the 60s in many spots by Friday, if not sooner, and probably into the 60s as we get deeper into the weekend and early next week too. Now, snow probabilities, that's the probability of 1 inch of snow. And those are not overly high probabilities. You're looking at 10-20% somewhere thereabouts over parts of western and central North Carolina. So not outside of the mountains, of course. So not a huge probability of accumulating snow. But again, I would not be shocked at all if there was a little dusting on some elevated surfaces in some spots tomorrow morning. Before we wrap up the video, a couple last charts to show you. There's the NAM computer model. Again, just that little round of light precip tomorrow. And then finally, the GFS for Saturday, it is much different than the European. The European is dry for Saturday. The GFS has another little piece of energy that shoots through, and you wind up with a cold, rainy scenario on Saturday. For the time being, I've left the Saturday forecast primarily dry, but we'll have to see how that upper level energy unfolds as we get toward the weekend. All right, that is it for today's edition of the Carolina Weather Video. Everybody have a wonderful day, and God bless.